Hey everyone. I do want to get started today on time. We'll do that for once for a change, but a few funny things. I've got someone came into the chat and asked where I got this cool custom background made, and it's actually our wall. So it's actually, I'm in the office and it's our wall. And funny story, we got the stickers made and my dad actually painted the wall. So a little bit of a startup feel to it. So it's not made anywhere. It's actually our wall. So thanks everyone for joining us today. With our webinars, anyone that's been on it in the past, these are a little bit more casual, I think, than you're used to. And I like to do it almost more of a conversation. We had Dante on from Allstate last time, and we're going to continue to try and do webinars as well as some few other initiatives as we go. Sorry, I see people's hands going up and stuff. We just signed up for the webinar package. That's why we could have, I think we have over 250 people signed up for today. So there's a few little new things that we see with Zoom. So if we get caught off guard, that's why it's new to us too. So today's kind of topics, because I wanted to kind of approach this with a certain goal in mind. I think you should have a goal when you come into these webinars. And for us, first and foremost, we've grown to a size now. We've got over just under 3,000 advisors across Canada that we work with. And this year we passed the 10,000 company mark. And the one fortunate thing that we find that has happened is we get to talk to all of these advisors. So we actually end up being a kind of a good conduit to see what benefits advisors are doing in the industry. And that allows us to essentially share the stories that we see with everyone. So we thought that would be kind of cool. So I want to share the stories and the insights, and hopefully you can take away something with it. As well, selfishly for myHSA, we want to kind of highlight through stories and conversation what we do exactly, because I think to our own fault, a lot of times we'll tell a new advisor or come out with an advisor that's been with us for years and say, oh, we can do this and that. And they're always amazed and they didn't know that we could do that. And it's even things that we've had available to us almost since day one. So we want to kind of show through story what we're capable of. Our name is myHSA, but we've kind of outgrown HSAs a little while ago. So there is a lot of customization and things you can do with us. Now, I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint. So I'm going to take it off and on today. And trust me, that's not full of words. So, but it is kind of a nice little crutch when you're presenting. So I'm slowly getting off of it. So maybe in the next few webinars, I won't have it. So our topics for today. So we wanted to chat about carve-out strategies, high renewals, myHSA as a constant in plan design. And then we can't have a webinar in these days without something to do with COVID. And specifically, we wanted to chat about kind of what we're seeing from a wellness spending account side of COVID. So the carve-out strategy. I attended a national group benefits breakfast meeting yesterday, and it was really good because all of the things that kind of I think we're seeing and hearing in the industry, it was echoed yesterday. And basically, these are unique times, and what I think a lot of advisors are coming up against is a unique time period where we're going to talk about tough renewals are happening right now. And there's a lot more conversations going on carving out certain products and self-funding them, whether it's through us or any other providers that do it. The conversations are starting to be had, and I feel like they're starting to be had more and more. And I think the easy, low-hanging fruit one that's been around for years is vision. So I don't want to touch on that too much, but I do want to kind of just mention that it's a similar concept. That one's a little bit easier because carving out vision is a $250 typically dollar amount over 2 years. And the big thing is if you don't have glasses and you work for the company, it's not a benefit to you at all. So it's kind of a unique one. So that's usually an easy one that people will either dump that amount or maybe a little bit more into an HSA. And for the flexibility to just say, here's the amount for vision for those of you with glasses. And for those of you that don't have glasses, here's some extra coverage that's flexible and you can be used however you see fit. So that's the easy one. The big one that we're starting to see now is dental ASO, self-funding dental. We joke in the office, HSAs and ASO, they're very different, but in the end, they're all different forms of self-funding. One's just a lot more open and one's very defined on the other end of the spectrum. And the reality is, and the nice thing with our system is you can build something that kind of can go all over the spectrum. So it can be wide open and flexible, or something that's very defined with fixed dollar amounts. So a little bit of the dental, why the conversation's been coming up, and it's COVID related. So as we're all aware, COVID happened, everyone shut down. You couldn't go see the dentist. So the question started to be asked, why are we paying for a service that none of us can access? Why are we paying a premium? Insurers, they reacted very fast, which was amazing. And to be honest, they probably did the right thing and stopped the premiums. So the insurers responded. Fast forward now, and what a lot of advisors are seeing is that, and I almost feel for the insurers because they're kind of in a tough spot. The renewal process is to forecast what expenses and claims are going to happen in the future. So they've got to try and do that, but also balance with not collecting premiums and no claims happening for a big chunk of this year. So they've kind of put in claims, ghost claims, phantom claims, whatever they kind of put in claims into the calculation for renewals. And you can kind of see why, because they're trying to forecast it. But I always put, if I think of it like an advisor, or more importantly, the client, if you're coming to me and there's a renewal and there's an increase, and the reason there's an increase is because of claims that didn't happen, I feel for you all, because that's a tough conversation to have. So now, and if they had clients that maybe did do dental ASO during the time, they did great. So the conversation's kind of saying, we're starting to see tough renewals on the dental, and it is a plan that includes a limit. So it's not technically true insurance. I shared a quote from Lori Power's blog. She's been in the industry for a long time, and I just think this summed up kind of the concept of self-insurance. And so they're starting to think about it. So everyone's starting to think of what happens. And the one thing I would ask too, that I wonder if advisors, and I would have this top of mind, is even if they want to stay insured, what happens if there's another full shutdown? We obviously don't want that to happen. We're only paid when people claim. But it's a good question to have in the back of your head is, have the conversation with the client, like what happens if there is another shutdown? If you're self-funded ASO, well, there's your answer. You can use that. So it's definitely come up. And the question is always, can the client afford the amount of coverage? So it's an individual conversation that has to be had with each client. Now, from myHSA standpoint, with myASO, basically myASO, we can build and create ASO style plans. So there's a few features that are important for this. So for example, what we see when people are doing dental ASO, they're usually going to do 80% copay for basic coverage, and we can pull out basic only coverage and do an 80% copay with, say, a $1,500 maximum. Then on the major dental, we can do things like you typically see in an insured plan, 50% with an overall maximum of $1,500. We can also do basic and major with a combined maximum. and even have different payouts for each type of dental coverage. The other one that comes up a lot is ortho. So we can actually do lifetime maximums, and we can do lifetime maximums per family member. So again, a lot of the things you see in a insured plan, we can mimic and recreate with myASO, dollar amounts per family members. But then we can also do some interesting things. So for example, we can have a per family limit, or we can actually do a per family member dollar amount, but the dollar amount actually gets pooled and shared by the family. So the idea there is if you've got, you know, 2 teenage kids, family of 4, and one of them needs braces right now, then you could essentially pool the money the family funds, and that can go towards the one child that needs orthodontics. So there's a lot of flexibility in there. We love talking about plan design. So a lot of time with ASO2, advisors will come to us, tell us kind of their ideal plan design, and then we'll actually recreate it in the system just to make sure it looks and feels exactly how they want, and point out if there's anything missing that we can't do. So that's kind of an idea on how we could do carve out dental. So high renewals. You guys are definitely showing your value right now. You know, the dental that I just talked about is having a huge impact on renewals. As well, you know, hearing about the renewal process for long-term disability, like I've heard that those are challenging. And basically the pooling questions that always come up with pooling charges with insurance, basically it's just kind of in a very tough financial time, you're also going through very tough renewals. And on this point, I always come back to it. When I was an advisor, I came into the industry like many of you, didn't know anything, didn't know there was an industry like this, came in, wasn't really taught it, but I gravitated to HSAs right off the bat. I think it was because I was in accounting before, but I gravitated towards HSAs. And to me, every time I had a tough renewal, and some of the renewals are totally valid. You can walk into the client's office and tell them, this renewal is fair, and here's why at 30%. But we've all had clients where it's like, this might be fair, I can't have this cost. Like, fair or not, we can't deal with this cost. I would always use HSAs, and now especially we didn't have the ability in the system back when I was doing it to do kind of the more defined ASO style. That would be my backdrop to any cost questions. So the easiest cost containment strategy is an ASO or HSA, in my opinion. Granted, there's some, you know, there's that the coverage is capped. Like, don't kid yourself. Like, with a cost that's capped, you also have the coverage that's capped. But it's a strategy for high renewals. And I think of it more as a tool in the toolbox. So we just want to remind advisors there are options. The one interesting thing that we're working on is it's a 700 person group. And what we're being used for, which is very interesting, they have a traditional insurance offering, and it's kind of like a modular flex plan. And basically the advisor really likes the customer service, the platform, and kind of what we can offer. We can check a few of the insurance boxes with our current products. And basically they're going into the renewal and the marketing as an alternative. So here's the traditional, but here's kind of, if you're interested, here's another option. And we love that strategy. We think it's awesome because we're not trying to reproduce what everyone else is doing. We want to kind of be a little bit different in a different option because we think more of a defined contribution is a model that's going to see some traction in the future. So love what they're doing, and just want to say, think in renewals that that self-funding is a tool in the toolbox. myHSA is a constant. So, and I call this, I got a few stories with this. I say this is the Josh story. So I knew, I actually played hockey with them prior, before we both got into the benefits industry. And so, you know, we're friends. And early on when we were doing myHSA, we actually kept in communication. And he was with a big consulting house, and he was doing a lot of business with us, which, like, funny enough, surprised us because we were just kind of getting our legs under us. And I remember I went to a demonstration with him one day, and I was like, Josh, why are you, like, I love it, but why are you doing so much business with us? And he's like, Steve, the bane to my existence is if I go to move a plan from insurer to insurer, the biggest pain point for me and the client is always the health spending account. So he's like, I always have problems with moving it, and it's always an executive or someone key that it's them that have the issue. So he said, what I do as a strategy is I want to keep you guys as a constant. So, you know, most plans or a lot of plans have an HSA as a top up. What I want to do is keep that. Everyone loves it. Everyone's happy. It's flexible. The platform works. Plan administrators like it. And then what I can do is if I need to market the plan or look and move carriers, I can plug and play them. But I keep you as the same. So there's always kind of like that default, something that everyone's comfortable with. They all like it. Otherwise, if I'm trying to move health spending accounts, the last thing I want to do is lose a client over an HSA. We always joke, we know we're not the thing that makes anyone rich in our industry, and we're okay with that. So that's kind of the Josh effect. And I kind of thought, wow, that's cool. I wouldn't have thought of that as a strategy. But we actually, and now that we're growing, Alice and I were talking, and she actually has heard that a few times from different advisors that they do the exact same thing. It's kind of the HSA stays with us, and then they'll figure out what coverage they need from what insurer when the time comes. So that's cool strategy. The other one I wanted to point out was flex plans. So flex plans, sorry, just going to share my screen here again. So a lot of advisors will use us as a top up, and we're okay with that. You know, we've never been one to bash insurance. Insurance has its place. We sold it, we get it, definitely need it. You used to see an HSA as a top up, but what we're starting to see is actually clients, a lot of time it's more of a group benefits focused clients, but that $500, even $250 top up, they're not making it just an HSA, they're actually making it a flex plan. And just to go back, and I want to make sure that kind of conceptually, and we do get a lot of questions like, what is the flex plan? So I'll just kind of describe the product quickly. So what happens is you can choose an HSA and a WSA, and we have options, and I'll talk about an option after. But basically what happens is if you have an HSA and a WSA and you give the employee $500, once a year, there's no forms or anything on the system, at the beginning of the benefit year in the first 30 days, they log into the system online or usually on the app, and they're prompted to make their allocation for the year. So they get to choose of the $500 how much they want to go into HSA and how much they want to go into WSA. That gets locked in for the rest of the year, and it can't be changed. It can be changed if there's a life event, so we can manually change it. But otherwise it's locked in for the year because it has to follow CRA. So people will actually put in that as a top up with an HSA and WSA, which is great because I think now with multiple generations in the workforce, you've got such diverse needs that you have to meet. It's super challenging. So if you have an employee who's young, maybe doesn't have a family, and really has no need for the benefits package, the traditional insurance benefit package right now, this top up, and it might only be $500, to them, this is their benefits. So they actually get to use it to something that keeps them healthy, active, engaged with work. So although you're paying $500 for that one employee's um, gym membership or whatever it might be, they're also not utilizing the insured portion, which is helping you. And they're not bitching and moaning, wanting to opt out of the health and dental because they see no value in it. So it kind of it might keep that type of employee happy. And then you can give the flexibility for the HSA side of things, for the ortho that might not be covered on a traditional plan. So you could think of using it as a top up, but I would say go beyond the HSA, think outside of the box. Which brings me to my last point. I should have shared, I just read an article that uh, employees were more concerned with their financial retirement. So don't quote me on this. This is one of those things. Than they were about job security. So, which like my mind, goes right to group RRSPs. The other way that we're being utilized kind of in that top up scenario is the flex plan concept, but some advisors are adding group RRSP as a third option. So the employee logs in every year, they get to choose, even if it's $500, HSA, WSA, or a group RRSP contribution. And this is where it gets a little unique, but it actually works quite well, even to our surprise. We don't tie in with a group RRSP provider, but that's okay. What we found is most advisors are very loyal to their group, their one, maybe two group RRSP providers. So if we came out to the market with one, we basically figured that most people wouldn't actually switch to our one provider just to have the funds payment going. So what you do is you have the three options. You set it up with your Sun Advantage or Manulife Group RRSP provider, whoever that may be, and the employee goes in and allocates. After the allocation window, the plan administrator runs a super simple report called a flex allocation report, and on it just says an employee's name and what they've allocated to health, WSA, or group RRSP. That last column, group RRSP, they know based off of that what their contributions are each month, or however periodically you make the contributions. Usually it's monthly, but they can take that report and then just set up their spreadsheet for their monthly contributions to the group RRSP provider. So, and we have advisors, once they do that once and it works quite well, it's a staple. There's no flex plan that doesn't have the group RRSP option. It works extremely well. And then the other key thing there is we don't charge a fee on the allocation to group RRSP. For us, we're not moving money. All we're doing is capturing that allocation. It's not right for us to charge a fee. The advisor still gets comp through the group RRSP. It's kind of a cost saving visually to the employer. It's win-win, and we're okay with it. It's a unique way to utilize the rest of our platform. So that's another kind of way that advisors are using myHSA as a constant. So the last kind of topic I wanted to share, again, we can't do this without talking COVID, is we've seen a real big trend with WSAs that are, attached to COVID. Initially on to, and it's kind of changing as well too, as we start to see kind of a more work from home strategy that looks like for some organizations, it's got some pretty good legs, and you might not see people going back to the office at all, or not nearly as much as they would need to, because working from home, the productivity's there. So what we first started seeing relative to WSA is that the employer in a mad scramble, and again, I want to preference this as if the company's doing okay, because we totally realize that some companies are not doing okay, so they're not looking to add wellness or any perks to their plans. They're trying to cut costs. But if the company in COVID actually is doing quite well, say a tech company, like a company like Zoom would be one that's rocketing. they were just dumping a flat dollar amount into everyone's WSA and then adding an expense item. We typically see it being called home office equipment. So basically, whatever they need to set up their home office, they just run it through their WSA and they just said, here's $300, add it to everyone and add this expense item. And that takes us minutes to add, if not seconds to add. So it can be done super quick. So there was a few companies that reacted quite quickly with that style. Now, as COVID's been around a little bit longer, we're starting to see some really cool, interesting ways to go about it. The one thing I would remind people, and we do it all the time, is WSA is not governed by CRA. So there's not a list that they say is allowable or not allowable. So you can really customize the list. I think where people thought it was such customization is any insurers that did it, and they're big companies, right? They had to figure out a way to adjudicate these claims. So they came up with their own list, like these 30 items or whatever they might be. We're not shackled by that as much. So we literally are like, you can use your imagination. And HR people love it, right? Because it's not the CFO, they have to run it by the CFO, but the type of personalities that are HR people, this is where it's like, you can create whatever you want, make it as cool as you want. So we're seeing some really unique things. The one thing Kirsten from our office was telling me about it, which was really cool, was they use the flex concept. So what they're doing is they give the employees an HSA, a WSA, and 2020 home office equipment. So it's its own category, if you will. The employee chooses between an HSA, a WSA, which will include a whole bunch of items, and then the third option, which is just 2020 home office equipment. The reason they use 2020 is in their requirements, the receipt has to be from 2020. If the receipt's from 2019 or 18, denied. And we, as an adjudication team, we can do that. That's no problem. We can build that into and we can communicate that to the client in the expense items. So that was a super unique one that was kind of cool. And just on this little image, Tim from our office with the COVID home gyms, he built quite a nice little gym buying and selling home office equipment. You should ask him for the video on it. It's a pretty unreal home gym. And now that's all he uses. He doesn't need to go back to a gym. He's just got an awesome gym at home. So those are the topics I wanted to cover. I just wanted in the last, before we start taking questions, is just share the products we have. So, just briefly, health spending account, I think everyone's aware of what that is. CRA eligible item list, non-taxable to the employee if they claim it, and flat dollar amount, flexible, they can just use it on whatever item CRA allows. WSA, these are taxable spending accounts. They can be anything the employer wants to reimburse the employee for. Typically, we'll see health and wellness, now home office type equipment, but it can be courses, it can be practitioners that are in CRA's eyes non-medical. It can be a wide range of things. Flex plan is basically the best of both worlds, and I would add that RSP component, when used, is super powerful, because again, you've got, like I always think of it on the spectrum, health, wellness, financial health. If you can provide those things to an employee, they're going to be way happier, and I think life is easier for them if they've got all three of those areas, kind of getting help in all three areas. So, and that's the biggest thing from what we do is, we hear these flex plan statistics. They're not the exact same, but you can offer the concept to small groups, whether it's 2 employees, 3 employees, 5 employees. You can offer some sort of concept like that to the smaller companies. It is out there, and we can provide that sort of thing. myASO, define your own plan. This is where we can be and utilize us with plan designs, because we can tell you very quickly caps, limits, all sorts of things we can build into the plan design. This will get you pretty close to an insured plan if you want it like that. We also say too, like, there's an element of creativity here. If you think, and I talk to advisors about this all the time, if you think that the employees don't know what a scaling unit is, and the employer's not overly cared how many scaling units there are, let's just do a simpler benefit plan that everyone kind of understands, and there's a cap limit, so it is what it is. Like, let's not limit the employee as much, but you might want to limit certain things. So you could do a practitioner, like, they're on board for flexibility, but they don't want them to abuse massages. So you can put just a limit on massages if you want, per family member or per employee. So there's a million different ways and things we can do there. My provider, this is, I would tie this in with our add-ons, which I'll go through or I'll show you next. We're not going to go through all the add-ons, but we've started to develop, because of our size, we're starting to have the ability to develop partnerships with different practitioners. A lot of them are tech-based because that's where we are. But what we started to get asked was, we love your product suite. Could we buy that product but not necessarily have a spending account attached to it? And the answer with my provider is yes, you can. It's rare, but it's there. And we're seeing that used for large groups that really want the product and to have it delivered digitally. So that's my provider. These are some of the products that we offer as bolt-on as well in my marketplace. I didn't want to talk too much about my marketplace here because I think that's a webinar on its own. But essentially, you've got two options with all of our products. You can add it to a spending account, bolt onto a plan, every employee has it. Or I think the benefit plan of the future is going to be what we would call my marketplace, where what we can do is actually give a flat dollar amount to the employee and have them go in, have all of these different benefits offered on an individual basis, and they can sign up for the products that are a good fit for them and their family. So each year they can come in, curate their own benefit plan, buy pet insurance, buy telehealth, maybe buy some CI, or put the rest of the money into a wellness account, but basically have the ability for them to curate their own benefit plan, and then next year they get to reevaluate it and see what works for them. The one thing I wanted to mention too is we're in the process of including advisor comp into the premium. So just to kind of be more, kind of standard, it's standard in the industry. And so we are doing that with products, and we'll be sharing them as we can make the change with all of those. That's it for me. Now I will stop sharing and try and pull up the Q&A. Is the recording available for viewing later? Yes. On my flex plan, say a person has a $1,500 benefit, can they choose once a year 500 HSA, 500 wellness, 500 home office, or does it all go into? So can they choose once a year 500 into the HSA, 500 into the wellness, and 500 home office, or does it all go to only one? You can build whatever option you want there. So if you want it to go into only one, you could do that. Or we actually have the ability in flex plans to do a limit. So say you give them $1,500, and as an employer, you don't want them to put the full $1,500 into the WSA, you can put a cap on that. So you can say the max they can put into the WSA is 500, and that means, and the system will stop them. So they'll have a $500 cap. So yeah, you can do whichever, we can build both of those models. I don't see, do you see any other questions? Rob, East Coaster, asked, where did that go? Can I sell a standalone CI plan using Allstate? Yeah, so you can do, now with Allstate, there's a 3-person group minimum. So with some of the products, there is going to be a minimum, and with the group CI policy, there's a 3-person minimum. But through my product hub, yes, you could have no spending account, but take advantage of the awesome Allstate offering, which it is awesome. Any LTD or life options available as add-on with any of the plans? We love this idea, and there's flat amounts available now, but this is a common question, I think, as we evolve as a company. More advisors are looking for, the more normal traditional pooled products. We're open to talking to people on the best way to do this. We've got a few ideas on partnerships, even like advisor block arrangements, where the advisor can basically tie it all in the platform in one. So there is some options that we are discussing, but for right now, we have flat amount options. And LTD is the hard one. And I have a feeling it's going to be real hard given how the renewals are going, but we love the idea. Like I said, we love the pooled insurance. Like, that's where you need insurance. So if we can make, from an administration standpoint, it easier, I don't know why we wouldn't look at it, because we totally believe in it. Is there a practice site where we can play with myHSA and design option? Oh, I'm so happy, Brett, you asked that, because I didn't even, the other day I asked our team about a demo site, and they're like, Steve, you idiot, there's one, it's in the system, every advisor has it. So when you log in on the top right, I believe it is, we have a demo, an advisor like demo dummy site available for each advisor. So yeah, every advisor's, and this is exactly that concept where you can go in and kind of play around with creating plans, and you won't break anything. We used to tell advisors you can go around and create plans, but they're live plans, so you just have to be careful. But with this, we built this for that reason, is you can't break anything. You could show it to a client. It's branded, like however you customize your portal, the branding will show. As well too, just on that note, so there's a practice site. There's also, every one of your sites, you have your own myHSA customizable website. So if you go into marketing, you'll see an advisor demo site. That's your own URL. It's customized. You can pick and choose what you put on it, but you can actually have clients sign up and build their own plans on this site. So the idea here is you could go, it's a 2-person company, especially COVID, right? I'm not going to go sit in front of them and create the plan with them. I want to be able to just flip them a URL. They can go on, and essentially it asks them questions and they build their plan as they go. And that's the advisor demo site. It's unbelievable. And I still think a lot of advisors don't know it exists, and you can customize it. So if you don't want our travel insurance or an insurance product or any product, because you might do your own thing, you can take it off so it's not on the website, and they can't sign up for it even if they wanted to. So check that out. That marketing tab, that's the first place I would go to kind of see all of the things that we're doing, or of course reach out to us. Do you produce taxable benefit reports at the end of the year? Awesome question. In the past, we leave it up to the plan administrators to do it. Here's why. Because technically, from an accounting perspective, I'm pretty sure that they are supposed to be doing taxable benefits on the next payroll. In reality, what a lot of people do is wait to the end of the year and do it on the T4. So that's where this would come in. We never, we didn't automatically send those out. This December, though, we are going to be, anyone who has a taxable benefit and was used, we're going to, just like when we do a withdrawal from a company, we actually send the plan administrator the bank rec report. We're going to send the plan administrator the taxable wellness report. And all that says is employee A has claimed $200. That's what you would drop onto their T4 or into payroll whenever they do it. So yes, that will be coming at the end of the calendar year. Regardless of when the plan renews, in our mind, we have to send that at the end of the year, calendar year, so that they put it on the T4 for next year. Any anti-selection issues if a company wanted to offer up myHSA programs, would just say the owners of the company and not the staff. In marketing, we have a shareholders, and I know there's different viewpoints of this. We have a shareholders document. I think it's Plan Limits and Shareholders is the name of it. It's a one-pager. I would send this to if you do have where it's just the owners or the shareholders. Technically, shareholders cannot get the benefit because they are a shareholder of the company, and a lot of people stop reading CRA's documents at that point. CRA set out a list of questions that have to be asked if there is a shareholder. And what it says is they cannot get the benefit as a shareholder. So this is where we're starting to see CRA tighten up on the T4 issue. So in their last update, they kind of mentioned when they were shutting down sole proprietors that someone with no T4 income was not technically an employee. I can't remember exactly what it said, but they had some clarity that, and the minute we saw that, we said, okay, really there needs to be T4 income. And the idea there, I believe, is T4 income clearly establishes an employee-employer relation. They might be a shareholder, but there's still that T4 income. So there is an employer-employee relation. But there are 3 questions that need to be asked. I believe it's 3 if it's a shareholder. So our thought is, yes, they can according to CRA, but they really need to document and have their accountant okay with it, because there's these 3 questions that do get asked, or that should be asked, which is basically, if you're getting the benefit as a shareholder, is there a reason that other employees are not getting the same benefit? And they obviously don't say, here are the reasons that are allowable. That's why an accountant would have to kind of come up to say if it's reasonable. And in the end, they're the one defending them to CRA. So it's kind of, with those ones, we say, share our document. Our document is just from CRA with the links. So it makes the accountants feel better. They might not know this stuff. You can send them our material. We have nothing to hide. It's right from the horse's mouth, CRA. And then they can kind of look through and decide if they're comfortable, if it's just shareholders or not. Because in the end, they're the ones that should have the final say, not us or you, because we're not tax experts. So yeah, we believe that it is clearly laid out, and if reasonable, with the right answers, yes, they can have it. Allison just put in a note there. How many companies are going away from traditional and using ASO self-insured option? Hard, because we don't really know firsthand. What I can say is we're growing like crazy right now. So to me, you're starting to see a shift. Unless we're really that good at what we do, I think there is a shift that you're starting to see with self-insured options. And I think that the benefits landscape is producing this. So these renewals that I talked about, pooling issues, a lot of advisors that we talk to are starting to get really fed up um, with pooling charges, and the employees are somewhat at a risk if they're really small. Here's a story that I remember. There was a 3-person group. One of the 3 people opted out of health and dental. The 2 people on the group started to use, they had illnesses and started to use, I imagine it was drugs. Triggered the stop loss, which is fine. So great, there's stop loss coverage at 10,000. But because it's such a small group, the pooling charges and even the renewals started to get insane, that they were looking at like 144% increase at renewals, even with the credibility and the pooling in place. So the idea there is like, well, eventually I could see where even if there's pooling and stuff like that, for a small company, you're gonna renew yourself out of being able to offer the benefit. And that's a challenge. Like, that's kind of not what everyone had in mind with benefits. So that option is kind of like, he's got to go try and find a pooled program, a Chambers or something like that, to go put it into. And anyone who has a pooled program, it's the exact risk you don't want, a 2-person group with high drug claims. Like, so it's a challenging environment. And there's lots of arguments that I see, and I kind of agree with both, is, do you have a drug cap? Is that honestly the best approach for a small business? Because that's all they can handle. They can't handle renewals if someone does have a $500,000 drug cost. And I think that pressure, you're starting to see more and more people to ASO as well too. I've seen a few different advisors articles mention, which I think this is legit too. With COVID, people are getting used to flexible work arrangements. They're starting to expect the same thing out of their benefits. And I think that's valid. I think it's totally valid. Is they're kind of saying, my work environment's flexible. Why the heck are my benefits not? And then again, you're starting to see more people using, platforms like us. So, again, that's my view. Take it for what it's worth, because we don't necessarily deal with traditional, but our business is growing quite quickly. Email and information piece around the demo site. Yeah, totally. That seemed to hit a nerve, so we'll send that information out. A dedicated webinar to the marketing tool. Cool idea. Okay, we're totally down with that. That's awesome. Is the admin fee with myHSA different from myHSA? Great question. No. So basically, everything on our platform, you as the advisor can decide what the total comp is. So we'll have our fees as well, and then you can build your fees on top of it. So I know the typical ASO, admin fees, say 10%. You can choose if that's what the client charges. And on that note, with my ASO, a lot of people don't know this, and we've started telling people, we have a pay-as-you-go model. We also have a subscription model. So in COVID, if you are running into a company where times are tough and the pay-as-you-go model, it could produce swings in cash flow. You can convert from that into a per employee per month subscription model. Then to take it one step further, many of you that know the benefit space, there's different funded models like budgeted ASO. Some operate under a float style where we want to deposit 60,000 and just hold on to that. If you get up to it, now it's not a trust. Let me be clear, it's not a trust, but it's a float style. We can do all of these funding methods now. We hired a full-time accountant. He's totally able to do different arrangements. We usually ask that it's for larger groups, but our idea here is we're going to manually do these different funding arrangements. And then instead of us building it and trying to guess what it should look like when it's automated, let's do it manually, learn, and then build it into the system. So we do have the different funding models too. Can the basic catastrophic be taken standalone as well? for a 25-person company. I might have to get back to you on, like, so I know we got that the basic catastrophic plan can be purchased individually. So in my marketplace, we got that, but I want to say that that plan, there needs to be a spending account, but let me double check for you, David. Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that one. On dental ASO, what's the billing method? Pay as you go or budgeted billing or float? Awesome. I just answered my own question. We can do anything. We can do any style that you want. Jeremy, still unclear about one-person corpse. Can one person be covered if he is the employee of his incorporated, even though he's no other employees? Yes. We say yes, as long as he's T4 income, and the rule of thumb is 10 to 15%. But again, it's all in that shareholders document that outlines that question. And that's why it's called the plan limit, because typically a one-person corp, first is can they have it if they're a shareholder. There's the questions, and then there's a conversation typically about limits, because it's not pay as you go, so you want to set a high enough limit if they need it, because we don't have to fund it, it's not a trust. But the general rule of thumb in the industry, and again, I don't know where this came from, is 10 to 15% of T4 income. Now, the reason I always say get the accountant involved is because we say T4 income. Most accountants think that's way too conservative. But I'd rather be conservative from ours and your standpoint. I'd rather be conservative than not. So we can have an off the webinar conversation, Jeremy, about that. So reach out and we can chat about it. Two shareholders, husband and wife. The principle is the same, whether it comes down to, they have to be employees to have an HSA anyways. It's in the PHSP documents. And then it just comes back to the shareholder questions that CRA would ask. And in fact, I have seen firsthand the owner of a company start to get audited. And again, it came over to us, so it wasn't actually us that set it up. And he had put claims through, and CRA was asking the questions. The document they send is these 3 shareholder questions, and basically just say, here's the questions, you fill in the answers. And I assume those answers better be good, otherwise they move on to the next step. So that's why I say I think they should document the answers and do that. But again, and why they need to make sure that their accountant's on side with it. I'm just going to make sure. For an HSA, is there a minimum number of employees? Nope, one person corp. We've seen that. Is there stop loss for the ASO? On the breakfast meeting, I wanted to jump in because they were talking about, I mean, this could be its own webinar, so I don't want to go too deep into it, but we have access to a reinsured stop loss product, and we have the okay from 2 insurers to build a plan. So we're going out about it a little bit of a unique way, and we have it in place. So we're pretty close to launching something, but it's the underwriting is one aspect of it, and then as well too, because when the stop loss hits, there's a prior authorization that should take place. So we're trying to figure out the best way to do that prior auth. And so what we want to have happen is, if we do come out with a stop loss product, we want to do 2 things. One, the employee can make the claims through our system all the way through. We're just changing who's from the employer up to the stop loss limit. On the employer's funding that. Then on the second one, it's the insurer funding it, but to the employee, the process is the same, like an easy process. But at some point, once you trigger the limit, a prior auth typically should take place. We're trying to figure out the best way to do that from the employee's experience. So it's not to say the prior auth should take place, but we want to make sure and make it an awesome process for everyone involved. So that's kind of where we're at with it right now. We're an open book, as you can tell. So we don't mind sharing things that we're working on because we usually get good advice from advisors on how to do it. So yeah, stop loss could be coming soon. Are you rebranding in the future? Hilarious story on that. Like everyone in the company would be dying laughing if they heard that. We thought about rebranding 2 years ago, and we were going to call ourselves Ben Benefits, and we were going to have a dog for our, and we spent weeks arguing, debating logo design. Like we have logos for Ben Benefits, and it's what type of dog. That's where we ended. And then finally we're like, this is stupid. Let's just, we're myHSA, this is what we're doing. So I cringe when I hear our name because I'm passionate about the benefits industry. And I think we do so much more that it inhibits us. It's also hard to say. But the other thing is, I don't know, it's your name. It's kind of what we're known for. So I don't know if a rebrand is needed, but so yeah, funny story on that. Ben Benefits. So I think that's it. Caitlin, sorry, I got Caitlin here. I don't know if I see any other questions. Ben Benefits, love it. Oh, a golden retriever. Here we go. We've started it again. Let the conversations fly at myHSA about a rebrand. So thanks everyone for taking the time. I feel like that was, way longer than I'd hoped, 20 to 30 minutes, but I hope that there was some value, and let us know. We usually do a poll in our newsletter on what the next webinar will be, but let us know. We're also firing up the podcast again. People keep asking when we'll do it, so that's going to be coming out shortly. So any benefits topics or outside of benefits, business topics, we want to kind of leave it wide open. Cover benefits, maybe some tech, but any other topics, let us know for sure on what you'd see. So thank you, everyone. Take care. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.